there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about cloud computing. We call it the Fudd factor, because people aren't sure what the different risks are. They aren't sure what they should be looking for. They have concerns. What about security? What about access? What happens if my internet goes down? Right? I've actually had somebody ask me, well, if I put my stuff in the cloud, what happens when it's windy out? Okay? That's completely legitimate. Happened about 2 months ago. It's because people don't necessarily understand how to think of it. So it really comes down to thinking of it as a utility. It's thinking of your computing resources and computing power as a utility. Okay? One of the most common concerns about cloud services is always security. Backing it up. Where does my data live? You're probably used to a situation where you can go into a closet in your office and you can point at a machine sitting on the floor and go, my data lives there. And people have difficulty wrapping their brain around the idea that my data does not live there. It lives out there somewhere. Okay? That's a common one. Another common concern regarding security is privacy legislation. Things like the US Patriot Act. How does that affect Canadian companies and Canadian data? And then as I'm talking to this cloud service, how do I know it's secure? How do I know the communication isn't getting hacked? Okay? So there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different aspects that sort of answer those different questions. And in the interests of time, I'm not going to go over each of these in fine detail. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, which has things in a bit more fine detail, you can simply email me after the fact, and I'd be happy to email you a copy of the presentation. So you can get a little bit more of the detail. But there's still a couple things that you can watch out for. When you're talking to potential cloud service providers, you can talk to them about data backup. What are they doing to back up your data? Where does the backup go? Does the backup also stay in Canada? Where in Canada? Right? If you've got all your eggs in one basket, it's not always the best. Right? Everybody knows that as far as business is concerned. You want to try to diversify a little bit. Where does the data live? This is another one of those common questions. A lot of or a lot of cloud service providers are based out of the US. Now, the technical side of the US Patriot Act means that the US has jurisdiction over any server that is on US soil. This means that the data contained on those servers are subject to US privacy laws. For a lot of companies, that's a real problem because US privacy laws are not as strict as the Canadian privacy laws. One way around that is to find out whether or not your cloud provider has an option for Canadian data centers. We have data centers in Canada too, and a lot of cloud service providers are starting to move north of the border simply because our privacy laws are more strict than the US. My company has a client which is one of the largest IT service providers in all of the US. Their annual sales are in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And they have a data center downtown Vancouver because their clients are concerned about the US Patriot Act. The US companies are concerned about the Patriot Act. So they're moving the data outside of the US. So you can find cloud offerings that are in Canada, and that completely takes care of the question of where does it live. As far as transmitting the data, usually the transmission, the communication between client and the cloud server, it's usually encrypted with the same kind of protection that your banks use. So if you've ever used web banking, most people feel that web banking is generally safe. And the same type of connection is used for a lot of cloud services. So is the communication safe? In my professional opinion, yes, it is. There's still some things that you can do to make sure that you're doubly safe, but the communication itself is safe.